What's up, everybody? As I am casually relaxing, laying down on this bench, still in the food coma since earlier. Some random thoughts about Japan. I feel like the viewers like silly comment, cheers, but I appreciate, thanks. Even just looking at this right now, I want to talk about like the contrast of Japan, right? And I've talked about how, Japan is interesting because even though there's so many people in such a small area, there's actually lots of peaceful areas too. Like, when you think about Tokyo, maybe you only think about something like Shinjuku, Harajuku, Shibuya, whatever the fuck it might be. But even right now, I'm in Tokyo. Earlier, when I went to Nagayama is Tokyo, but it's very peaceful. It's like mundane. Inagi is Tokyo, right? So there's these very kind of like peaceful areas too, besides like the city life. And I've talked about, how even like talking about other people or talking, that girl, she came up to me, what was it? Was it a week and a half ago? I don't remember when it was now. I was at the park and we started talking and she's like, yeah, the city we were talking about again, the city's where you go to have fun. And I'm like, you thought of doing it before, being an escort, like at 12 years old? Are you fucking kidding me? She's like, oh yeah, just, I don't know, just was worried I wasn't cute enough, right? But it's interesting, right? Because again, you see, and she was like, the city's, and like not just her, but other people are like, the city is where you go to have fun. That's where you go to like live out your life, so to speak, and then you go back to this mundane sort of thing. Not that people aren't having fun here, I'm sure, but it's very, very peaceful, right? And so I was talking about this contrast again with a Japanese dude recently. So I've said before, people actually recognize me, not just from like YouTube sometimes in Japan, which is crazy, but sometimes you just get the random comments like, oh, are you an actor, are you a model, blah, blah, blah. But sometimes people have just legitimately recognized me like, oh yeah, we saw you last time. You're here for however, a couple months, whatever it was. You're a Disney Prince guy, or you're a Final Fantasy guy. Yeah, we all know you, right? Disney guy or Disney Prince or Final Fantasy guy, right? So I was sitting down, I was eating the 7-Eleven chicken, right? Chicken at convenience stores are pretty tasty. I was sitting down, and one of the catcher guys comes up to me, and he's a Japanese dude. He's like, hey, what's going on? And maybe he was on like break, so to speak, and he just like we just start like talking, maybe had like a 15-minute conversation or something. He just sat down while he was a bit free, maybe. Again, I don't know if he's on break, whatever. But not the best English, but, my Japanese is terrible. But we were conversing and everything like that. And, I was telling him about, like, we were talking about the contrast of, like, the city life when you're there towards the more suburban life and everything like that. And I was telling him the story about how, examples say that one girl, young girl, you know what I mean, who no one in her entire life has ever asked if she's okay. Right? And, it's crazy that you would think that a girl, I guess if you're to stereotype, you stereotype like a young girl, right? Would ask like an older guy, you know what I mean? I guess it's not crazy. I guess, there's always the idea that younger girls like older guys and older guys like younger girls. It's not like some hot take or something, but it's interesting to think that, hey, a girl could meet you for 5 seconds, or geez, I don't even know how long we were talking. It wasn't long, 5 minutes, and, just, hey, take me home and fuck me for the entire weekend, right? I trust you. But, you have that kind of trust, and, she hangs out at that area, but she's never had a person in her entire life ever ask if she's okay. Are you really friends? Are you really friends if your friends can never ask you if you're okay? Kind of weird, right? And I forget if I told this story, but a guy was telling me, this might be a new story. He was telling me that a girl did actually kill herself there. And he was telling me that there was not this guy that I was talking to right now that came up to me, but another guy was telling me this story that there was a girl who, always hung out around there, blah, 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 blah. But one day she brought a rope and she was asking people how to kill herself if she ever wanted to. And the group there apparently actually showed her, and then she left and she fucking killed herself. That is a deep, dark, fucking scary story, right? That's scary. It makes you wonder how much friends some of these people really are. And I was even talking to that guy, and I was like, I told him, I was like, you know what? I think there's this idea, a stereotype, that it's hard for an American to be friends with a Japanese person. But even, I was like, I don't know if Japanese people really want to be real friends with Japanese people. You know what I mean? He's like, maybe sometimes like that. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? And then even I talked about like, we were talking about the sexual culture. And I was like, yeah, man, you got young girls fucking older guys and all that kind of stuff. And he's like, yeah, that's because it's here. And he's like, it's okay here. But he's like, everywhere else in Japan, no. He's like, that would not, it wouldn't be okay for, young girls to be fucking guys all the time like that. But here it's okay. And the idea is just that, I just thought it was interesting because you think we were just kind of talking about the contrast, you know what I mean? And it's kind of dark. It's kind of scary too. Of how the city is just such a different vibe than Japan. Like the city is where you let out these emotions, these feelings, you know what I mean? The girlfriend thinks quotation marks, or maybe she tells herself that it's okay for the boyfriend to go and have sex with, guys. It's okay to cheat, just like it's technically okay for the girl to cheat. I mean, geez, I've had girls that have boyfriends. Just recently, I had a girl, she's like, it's okay, my boyfriend, like, I just won't tell him, and I'll fuck you. She's like, no, so she's like, it's not a big deal. We just won't talk about it. Which I guess technically probably, I guess that's not different than America, but maybe the bluntness of it, the bluntness, acceptance, like, she's like, it's whatever, We're here to have fun. And then we'll go back to the mundane life, so to speak. But, it's just funny because, again, that guy is talking to him and, we were talking about how dangerous areas are like this, and yeah, he's like, this isn't a dangerous area, blah, blah. And he was actually saying that he's been to America before and everything like that, and I asked him how it went. He's like, oh, I was in jail in America when I went. And he's like, well, it was kind of hard to exactly understand what was going on because, he just sat down while we're talking for a little bit, and he was just like, oh, well, I ended up running away from the cops because of something, and then I got put in jail for a month, and you know what I mean? I was like, man, you got put in jail for a month because you ran away from the cops? What do you run away from the cops for when you're in America? And he's like, yeah, I don't know. He's like, well, I'd like to go back to America and travel, but, I've been in jail and all this kind of stuff, even in America. So, anyway, who knows what he was actually, doing, I mean, seems like a, nice enough guy, though, right? You know what I mean? It's kind of funny, though, that, you think when you hang out around enough, they kind of like, some people are like, okay, you're cool to talk to. We can, like, fuck around. Now, does that guy think I'm actually a friend? Probably doesn't think I'm like a real friend, but he's one of the guys that jokes with me. It's like, oh yeah, you're Final Fantasy guy. And he always says, I don't know. Here's the thing, I'm gonna sound bad because again, I was more of a Final Fantasy 8 guy and Final Fantasy 10 guy, but he's always like, how's the Revolutionary Army going, Cloud? Is that what it was called in Final Fantasy 7? I don't remember. He's always like, Revolution Army. He's like, how's it going right now, Cloud? What are you doing today? Well, in Japanese, right? Revolutionary Army, blah, blah. Yeah, something like that. So, anyway, I just thought that was interesting because, we're just talking about the different contrasts, but it's kind of a stark contrast, but it's a accepted kind of contrast, which I think is interesting because even when I think about, when I went to Turkey, there's that kind of, it's the Turkey thing is almost deeper because you think about like, is it the Bosphorus River that takes this from Istanbul? I forget. Is it the Bosphorus River? What is that whatever that river, whatever it was in Turkey? I'm an idiot. I'm a stupid American. Don't blame me. But you think about the lakes dividing Turkey, and then the sea, Bosphorus Sea. Is it a sea? Whatever the fuck it is, right? And then you think about the ideology of the more progressive side of Turkey, and the more religious side of Turkey, and you think about those two sort of ideologies and. Then in Turkey now there's a more Arabic population that a lot of Turkish people don't seem to be happy about. And actually something, even speaking about that, even in Japan right now, actually just talking to people, it's kind of crazy. Like I haven't heard this in any other trips, but people have been telling me that they're worried about the Arab population moving into Japan even. And then some foreigners I've talked to have been like, not American foreigners, but European foreigners. They've been like, yeah, we actually want to live in, Japan because we feel more safe here because like there's too many refugees, in Europe right now, and it's like getting more dangerous and we don't feel safe, which is kind of interesting, right? So I'd never heard that before, while in Japan at least, but people have like kind of openly talked about that a little bit, which is kind of interesting, and I'm fucking rambling right now, but kind of interesting. But anyway, like I said, I always think the contrast of things are different. Japan, you can walk down a road, especially when you're in a big city, right? You can walk down a road and you're always in like a different world, it feels like. But again, I think Japan is interesting because here I'm in a more peaceful sort of area, so to speak. And then after I've spent most of the trip laying down, just so fucking tired from house stuff. But I'll go back to the city tonight. It's not super late right now. It just gets dark really early in Japan. And you'll see a big contrast. And I think the contrast is different because you always see different perspectives and seeing different ways that people live life. And even in the same country, a different, it could be just a simple, boom. A few minutes later, your life is totally different. We're doing something totally different. You know what I mean? I don't know, but yeah. Remember, if you like the videos, like, sub, comment, share, support the channel. I got a little bit longer that I'm in Japan. If you want to help me buy a tiramisu before I go, whatever, support the channel. PayPal, Patreon, Super Chat, Snapchat, super like, sub, whatever, Christmas present. I don't know what the fuck you would call it. Anyway, the end.